What's up, guys? We're back with another video. What are we talking about this time, Clay?
We are talking about types of diets.
Woo!
Alright, so previously we talked about your prep diet. We went into detail with kind of like your fats, your proteins, and your carbs. Well, we brushed the surface for you. Now, this one we're going to talk about dieting types. And we wanted to follow the last episode with this for one particular reason. Because you need to know how to build your diet for what type of diet you're doing, and you need to know what goes into those diets. So let's talk about this. Let's hit carb cycling first, because I think in the prep world, it's the largest form of dieting we see.
I would agree.
And I think this too. I don't care if you're vegetarian, pescatarian, what paleo, you can still carb cycle. It is not a type of diet that tells you what foods you have to eat. So like a vegetarian can still carb cycle because they still have carbs in their diet. They do high days and low days. But same with, let's say, pescatarian. They only eat seafood or fish, that type of stuff. That's your pescatarian diets. Now a pescatarian is very simple, no different than your other people. You just have to use different things at different times, use your protein source different, but still allows for cycling. Now, let's talk about this. Something that Phil had mentioned just a second ago before we started this episode that he wanted to make sure we went into detail. This is the perfect time to go on. When we carb cycle, let's talk about what we do with calories.
Now, you have pretty much two options here. You can calorie cycle, or you can keep your calories the same. Now, when you're carb cycling, so say you're at 200, 150, 100. Now you can either leave the proteins and fats the same, or...
Which is my preference. Protein and fat stay the same, and you lower the carbs, so you have a low days and high days of calories and carbs.
Correct. Or you can just cycle the carbs, which is going to leave the calorie of your total daily intake the same.
You change up your fats on your low days. So your low days, you would increase the fat, but have less carbs. Now, is there an advantage to this? So let me start with this. When we carb cycle, we can do this one of two ways. You can set your big lift days up on your higher carb days, your smaller lifts up on your lower days, and your training days where you have, let's say, we're going to use legs as your big days. And then we'll say your back is your medium day because it is a lot of muscle in your back and it does require a lot of energy to work out your back. So you have a medium day for your back, you have high days for your legs, and you have low days for arms and chest, shoulders, stuff like that. So that gives you a caloric cycle and a carb cycle together if you leave the fats the same and the carbs the same and the proteins the same and only cycle your carbs. Your calories are going to go up and down because you might have 100 grams extra on your high day than your low day of carbs. That 100 grams extra is 400 calories. Now, if you take and you add in fats to replace the carbs, you might have, 3,000 calories every single day, but some days with more fat, some days with less. I don't like that as much because you're not creating larger deficits. Now, if you're in an off season, that'll be better, but we're talking about prep diets. Carb cycling, I believe, is the most largely used in our sport. I see it the most, especially with female coaches that concentrate on females. I see it all the time. It doesn't mean it's the best style. It is my favorite style for most people. What carb cycling does is it kind of helps the body get around some of the metabolic shutdown because the body's never having a consistent amount of energy given to it. So you have the high days, the low days, you have all these different days coming in with different carb amounts. Let's say you have 3 low days, 2 high days, 1 medium day. That's your 7-day a week, cycle there. Your body doesn't know what it's getting and what it needs, so you're constantly giving it something different, so it takes longer to get in a metabolic shutdown. Now, one of these diet types, the next one I'm going to talk about, is kind of like a linear gradual decrease. It means every single day for a period of time you have the same amount of carbs, and then we decrease it 10, 20, 30 carbs, and you go same amount, then we might step down again. So it kind of looked like, some steps because you're just stepping down the carbs little by little. That one's widely used, and I do like that for my ectos. There's a reason why. With that one, you're gradually going to get metabolic shutdown. It's going to come a little bit quicker as you decrease those carbs because they're staying extended periods on the lower amount of carbs. But I've noticed, and this is from hands-on experience of prepping, I would think I put 400 entries on stage about a year. Is that about right?
Yeah.
So you put about 400 entries on stage a year, guys. That's a lot. And I've been doing this for 12 years. Pretty good amount of time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see things and I pick up on them and I keep using a style that I've seen work for like an ectomorph. And I'm going to use Phil as an example. Phil grew so much at the end of his last prep with this type of dieting style because his metabolism started to slow, so his body started using the food more efficiently and he's growing rather than just going through it left and right. That little bit of slow of his metabolism, he was still leaning out because he just got down to, where I am normally, and he was leaning out but also growing at the same time. And I love that style with them, although I prefer carb cycling with 90% of other people.
And he prefers the carb cycling because it refrains from the metabolic shutdown.
Exactly.
Because those high days and especially if you're doing carb cycling with the calorie cycling, on those high days your body is intaking more food, which is obviously going to speed up your metabolism. And then it's also going to push you hard on those low days where your metabolism would slow down, but obviously the high peaks are going to keep that metabolism running quickly. Whereas in linear, it's going to progressively get slower as the time goes on, and then that's where you kind of see things like saturation days, refeed days.
Right.
If it gets too slow,
Diet
and we'll throw things in like that to make sure the metabolism doesn't get too slow if we do realize it does get too slow.
Yep, exactly. Now let's talk about keto dieting. Dave Palumbo is a huge keto fan. You ever listen to him? That's what he talks about. I'm not the biggest fan of keto for prep. However, some of my girls will tell you I do use keto to kind of reset their metabolism, throw them in all that fat, weeks out from going into prep sometimes, just really reset their body and give them something, an overload of fat, and it usually brings them down in weight. First, they're dropping all the water weight because they don't have the glycogen, and glycogen stores water, so that falls off, and then the fat starts coming down. And then usually I give them a diet break and we go into prep. But that's kind of like a metabolic reset is how I use it. It's hard to explain how it works, but just think about fat being 9 calories, per gram, like we talked about last one, and you're throwing all this fat, this real complex food at them that's really long to break down. The body's working all day to break down that much fat that I would give them, 125 grams or so. So that's a lot of fat. So maybe 150 grams. It's usually 75% of their diet. So
Yeah,
roughly 75% of the diet is usually what I give them in fats. It's a lot, guys. So I'm not a big keto fan in prep because of the glycogen issue. You drop all the water and everybody's, I'm getting lean, I've lost just much weight. And you're like, actually you look the same right now, you're just softer.
And
because you don't have the fullness.
And of course there is the other switch off for keto and prep when you go to load for show.
Right.
That is where
it gets really tricky.
Personally, it's tricky, and personally why it's not my favorite. I don't have nearly as much experience in keto as probably he does. I've used it more with my general dieting clients. I've actually never used it on a prep client, so I don't have too much input, but I do know, obviously, if you're running your main fuel source off of fats, which is what keto is, when you go to load for stage,
it's a total different ball game because your body's not used to having all these carbs, and very often you can get watery. There is one coach here locally, I'm good friends with him, he does 90% of his clients on keto, probably 99%. I don't know any of his clients that don't do keto. That's his style. And they get lean, they look good, but they never look full. They always look good and lean, that's it. They don't look full, and then stage time, I've seen a lot of them not react good to loading. Now, him himself runs the keto, and he actually loads fairly well because he's done it for so many years, but it does not work good for everybody because you're throwing in this carb product that spikes your insulin. Now, your insulin hasn't been spiked forever. You're really sensitive, and up goes the insulin, and many times up comes the water holding. And then you can't get it off, and it's not a good thing. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. I am using this with several clients right now. It really fits their schedule good. I have several females, physique and figure females, that I use this with for them. And this is the thing, is that they're bigger girls, they're hungry, but once I switched them over to IF, now they're only eating from usually about, I think one of them starts at noon, ends at 8. So she has an 8-hour window to get all her meals in. Okay, so she has that 8-hour window. In the morning, she does get a small meal because she actually trains in the morning. And this is the one time that I use fats for somebody. I give her MCT oil and a protein shake when she's done training, and that holds her over from, she finishes training around 5:30 or 6 a.m. and holds her over to the 1 o'clock slot, to where she starts actually bringing in the rest of her food, and she fits it into that 8-hour window. And she is leaner now. She looks better. This is the first time we've ever tried IF with this one client, but it's changed her whole, even relationship with food. Honestly, because she told me today, she did a check and she says, "I feel good all day. I'm never hungry."
And that's another thing with the intermittent fasting too. Is it's kind of per person, because for me, intermittent fasting, I personally am not good at eating a lot of food in one sitting. I like my meals spread throughout the day. Some people who like to be, especially the people who really crave that satiated feeling and feeling really full, intermittent fasting is good because during that 8-hour window, for example, you're getting all of that food in and you're actually getting that full feeling. There's points on prep, especially towards the end of prep, where I don't get full. I am still a little hungry after each meal. With intermittent fasting, since it's compressed into that window, you could at least get that satiated feeling. And I do hear often, this is another one I haven't personally played with too much because I don't like big meals and sittings, is that people do feel fuller throughout the rest of the day because they're able to hit that satiated moment at some point throughout the day.
And there's one more positive to the IF, is insulin sensitivity usually goes up because you're fasting throughout the morning. Hence why her first meal is a protein shake with MCT oil. It has no insulin spike or minimal insulin spike because the protein gets a little spike, but that MCT oil slows that protein down even more, so she doesn't have a huge spike. I mean, we do get a spike from BCAAs, we do get a spike from protein, but it's minimal comparative to our carbohydrates and our sugars.
And also with that, it's kind of like what we just talked about in the last video, where the fats are going to help with the growth hormone that you have in the morning, especially because she's working out.
In the morning too, yeah, exactly. Now, what are reasons you would diet people differently, and what is a reason you diet yourself differently? Let's go into schedule. I kind of do a morning fast every morning because I wake up, I do my cardio, I get my kids ready, take them to school, then I go to the gym, then I leave the gym and I come here to work. I get to work at 10 a.m., I wake up at 7 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. on prep, 7 a.m. out of prep. So if I wake up at 6 a.m. and I fast till 10, I'm getting a 4-hour fast in the morning from the time I get up. Now, I will throw this out there, I run growth hormone. So I'm not going to drop any muscle, but I'm burning tons of fat, which is why people always ask me, "You're 265 pounds and have a six-pack with veins through it. Why?" Well, growth hormone burns fat. There's no other lipolysation formula that burns fat like that, because I take it and I'm doing activity. I don't stop in the morning. I'm go, 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 go. You have to remember, I get up, I do cardio. I get kids ready for school. Get a 6-year-old ready, put his clothes on, talk to him, get his hair combed, get his lunch made. And I have Sarah who helps, and we're both doing this back and forth. Plus, we both shower, so that's how we help each other. Then we got a 12-year-old. We get them to school. We do shower in the mornings because we do our cardio. We got to afterwards. So, you're busy. That entire time I'm burning fat. So burning that fat and having a way to lipolyze it. Now, off season, I do not use L-carnitine. L-carnitine can prohibit some muscle growth. All your antioxidants can, really. So I don't use a lot of L-carnitine in off season. Now, I fast for those many hours in the morning but I don't do intermittent fasting. Once 10 o'clock comes in, I eat every 2 hours. You see me eat several meals a day. I just finished eating right before we did this. Hell, he finished eating.
I just eat too.
So every 2 hours I eat once I'm awake. That's just the way it works. But that's one reason somebody might not be able to get meals in with their schedule in the morning. And let's say they would have to sacrifice sleep to do it. So they'd have to get up an hour earlier to go do their cardio. Then come have a meal. Then go work out. Then come have their post-training meal. And now that 30 minutes of eating those 2 meals is playing into their sleep. I'd rather get them their sleep and start with pre or post as a shake or post as food and allow them more sleep so they can keep in the, get their rest and prep. It's hard. So that's one reason. Let's say eating, he can't eat a lot of food at once, big portions. Doesn't want to either. It keeps your waist smaller than eating those small portions. You don't have a big belly and a big stomach pushing up against it. So if you're eating the smaller portions, it's easier to spread them out throughout the day where you consistently get about the same amount of food until your pre and post workout times, which you're expending a lot more energy. Some other things that go into that is your diet style and your body type. So, like I told you earlier, I like to do a linear decreasing diet with Phil because he's an ecto. I like to do that with a lot of my ectos. So that says I'm not going to be carb cycling them as much, or maybe I'll carb cycle them a little bit to get them super lean. And then I go into that. Or vice versa, I go into that, and then I bring in the carb cycle near the end. So there's a whole bunch of reasons to change the diet style for what fits you. And as a coach, I sit with my clients and I say, all right, what's working? All right, like the one I just told you I put on IF, amazing. I mean, she used to complain she's hungry all the time. Same amount of food, guys. And when she first went to IF, she said, I'm hungry in the mornings. I'm hungry in the mornings. And now it's like, no, I'm not hungry in the mornings. Not at all. After I work out, I'm good until my first meal. I love it. I'm glad we did this. For the first week, she was hungry. After that, she hasn't been hungry since. Other reasons you might diet somebody differently, other than, let's say, food requests like vegetarian, other reasons other than schedule based or...
I don't really have much more to add on to that. I was just thinking, when people get stuck, sometimes you may have to use, multiple forms of different diets, and maybe not everything that we've spoken about.
Let's talk about something that we did talk about the other day, me and you. You had a client, you gave her a refeed. What happened? Remember this? We talked about it last Friday, I think.
Oh, the one who dropped a bunch of weight after she ate? Yeah. Some people, after rest days or refeeds, will just drop a bunch of weight. Mm-hmm. And
he refed. Friday he came to me and he's like, hey, I refed one of my clients and she dropped what was it?
3.2 pounds?
Yeah, 3.2 pounds coming off the refeed.
Into a new low.
Yeah, and got her lowest that she's been. That refeed, her body needed that. Her body needed to know that that food was coming, and that is a type of carb or calorie cycle. Even though it's just a refeed, I have a girl that messaged me today. She's a figure girl. She goes, you put a cheat meal on here for this week. I said, yep. And she's like, seriously? I said, yep. She goes, but you gave me one last week. I said, yep, you lost 4 pounds last week, and you're still on 200 grams of carbs, and you're losing weight. I'm not going to take food away. I'm giving you another cheat meal. You lost 4 pounds, guys. That's not a little bit of weight. So I gave her another cheat meal. And I'm probably going to give her another one next week because I don't want to lower her calories any. I don't want to up her calories any because she's looking terrific. I like the way she looks. She's holding enough fullness, but she's still dropping weight. And I mean, 4 pounds is a lot, so I'm expecting, like I told her, maybe 1.5 to 2 this week.
And continuing cheat meals and stuff like that. We've talked about this in one of our earlier videos, but the mentality that you have too, being in a great mindset has a huge play in how much weight you're able to lose. And that rolls around to stress levels, being able to sleep as much, and so on and so forth. But, after a cheat meal, I feel like I sleep better, I'm happy, I don't have as much stress about, food and stuff, because obviously,
And you feel rewarded.
That's another great way to put it too, especially...
It's important for you guys who have coaches to feel like your coach notices it. I've seen that so much. When I was a young coach, I overlooked that. I was a hard coach as a young coach, guys. But I've learned more since then, and that's helped me be a better coach because like her, this client that I'm talking about that texted me, she texted me the hug emoji because she was so excited. And I mean, she's not a first-time competitor, but so excited that I'm giving her this. Like she felt rewarded. It's going to keep her motivation up. It's going to keep her going hard. It's going to keep that head down grinding because it excited her. That excitement several weeks in the prep, we're 5 weeks in right now, 4 weeks in, is great for her. That excitement's going to keep that motivation going. And if she keeps dropping like this, we're not taking cheat meals out. I'm not taking cheat meals out of someone dropping that much weight a week.
Absolutely.
I mean, she needs it. She needs some food. And her cheat meals are normally burgers and fries. That's what she likes. That's what I like for my cheat usually too. It's a great cheat meal. It has a little bit of everything in it. Protein, carbs, and fats. All extra. So guys, like I said in the previous videos and in the beginning of this video, we're scratching the surface of ideas for prep. I hope you can figure out what fits you for this prep or for your prep. Whether it's a carb cycling, linear decrease, a keto, an IF, whatever it is, research it, read about it, learn more, ask us questions. We'll put answers there because we want to educate you on the different dieting types. And there's more dieting types than this. We didn't go into carb backloading. There's some crazy things out there. But we're going to the most used prep styles.
And definitely, guys, there is no such thing as a perfect diet. I've prepped for, I don't even know how many shows now. And guess what? Almost every prep has been different. Every prep under this coach has been different. And that's how it should be. You're supposed to use these diets to your advantage. Don't do keto because your friend told you it's working. Don't do your own research.
I gotta throw this out here. Hold on. Do you remember the guy in the gym that came to you that he didn't know you're a coach and what he said to you?
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Tell him the number one diet style.
I had somebody come to me, he cornered me while I was doing cardio, and he goes, he was talking to me about prepping and what he did, and he was like, you want to know how to get super lean? He's like, no carbs for 2 weeks, carbs for a week, just rotate like that all the way into show, you'll be freaking peeled, man. And I was like,
that's his diet style, I guess. He said that.
Alright, man, if that's what works for you, I'm not doing no carbs for 2 weeks because I'll shrivel up.
You'd be as thin as a sheet of paper right here in front of us. You wouldn't be able to see through.
So if you guys can take anything away from this, you want to take into consideration different types of dieting, you want to ask questions, educate yourself. It's the biggest thing that we're doing with the overall of this entire channel, is to educate you some and to hopefully push you guys to go further educate yourselves, because there's a lot of great information out there. But do please be cautious of the bad information. Take everything in, analyze it yourself, and take away the good. There's so many different ways to diet.
Yeah.
Not every way may work for you. And if a coach ever tells you that this is the one and only way to diet, you should probably not work with them.
Right.
So
I've never dieted the same client the same way ever, and they're the same client because every situation is different. Their motivation is different. Their timing of hitting the show is different. Their weight will be different. Their muscle amounts will be different.
Their schedule
will be different. I mean, everything.
There's so many things.
You got variable after variable after variable. So get good at algebra.
Alright guys, well, thanks for watching this video. Please go ahead and smash that like button.
Please.
Follow and subscribe as well. Leave us some comments, and we will see you guys in the next video.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.